Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Gaia, also known as Granny Gaia on TikTok, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. Today's tutorial is an updated step-by-step tutorial on this cardigan. It's a lightweight, airy cardigan, perfect for spring or summer. Now, I purposely made it with a larger hook because I wanted it to be super breathable, but if you want less holes or less gaps in between your stitches, you can just use a smaller hook. This is actually a remake of my first striped cardigan tutorial, as I've received many requests from you guys to make a more in-depth, detailed version, since my first tutorial was more of a guide. This is a made-to-measure tutorial, so you can change the length of this to however short or long you want. You can make it cropped, you can make it longer, it is totally up to you. So I hope you enjoy this cardigan tutorial, and if you do have any questions, you can just leave them in the comments or you can send me a message on Instagram. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be using this soft cotton yarn. It is equivalent to a number 2 or sport weight yarn. I'm going to be using 2 colors, but you can make it in just one color if you want. I will have the link to where I bought this yarn in the description box down below. Now this is a made-to-measure pattern, so you can use any yarn you want. Just make sure you are using the correct hook size. So for my number 2 sport weight yarn, I will be using 2 different yarn sizes. For our ribbing, I'll be using a 4.5mm hook, and for the rest of our cardigan, I'll be using a 5.5mm hook. Now you don't have to use 2 different hook sizes, you can just make the entire cardigan with 1 hook size if you want to, but I use a slightly smaller hook for the ribbing just to give it that cinched in effect. You'll also need some stitch markers, a darning needle, some scissors, and a tape measure. Okay, first things first, we need to take our measurements. So take your measuring tape and take the bust circumference or chest circumference. So you want to take your tape measure and put it all around your chest like so. Now mine measures about 33 inches all the way around. Now that we have our bust measurement, we are going to make calculations to figure out how wide our front panel has to be. So as I said before, my bust measurement was 33 inches, and since I want this cardigan to fit me comfortably, I don't want it to be too tight, I'm going to add 1 inch. So for me, that is 34 inches because 33 plus 1 equals 34. Now with that new bust measurement, we're going to divide it by 4. So for me, that's 34 divided by 4, which gives me 8.5 inches. Now with this 8.5 inches, I do want my cardigan to be more open and also leave some space for the neck hole. So what I'm going to do is minus 1.5 inches from 8.5. So 8.5 minus 1.5 gives me 7 inches. So that means my front panel will be 7 inches wide. If you are making this for a different size, all you have to do is substitute your measurements into where I put my own measurements. Okay, since we are starting from the bottom upwards, so that means we are starting with the ribbing part. And by that, I mean, okay, here is just one of the front panels that I've already completed. This is what I mean by ribbing, okay? So you want to determine how tall you want your ribbing to be. For me, I want mine to be about 1.5 inches tall, so keep that measurement in mind. You can make this as long or as short as you want. So we're gonna start by making our ribbing. We're gonna start with a 4.5mm hook because we are making our ribbing. I'm gonna start by making a slip knot. Now we're going to chain the height of our ribbing. So remember how I said I wanted mine to be 1.5 inches tall. So I'm gonna make a chain that measures this length. So for me, that is 7 chains. I've made my 7 chains, and this is how tall I want my ribbing to be. Once you're happy with the number of chains, you're going to make 1 more extra chain as our turning chain. Now we are going to work into our chain, making single crochet in the back loop only. So skip that first chain we just made and go into the second chain and make a single crochet. To do that, you're going to yarn over pull up a loop, and with 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's our first single crochet. If you struggle with identifying where your stitches are, I really do recommend you mark every first stitch of each row so you don't get confused. Okay, so keep doing your single crochets into each chain. So going into my next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, with 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. I'll show you one more time. Insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, with 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. Okay, so far I've made 3 single crochets. We're going to continue making single crochets all the way down. So since I made a chain of 7, I should have 7 single crochets. Once you made it to the end, we are now going to chain 1, turn our work, and we are only going to go into the back loops of our stitches. So skipping that first chain we just made and picking up only the back loop of the stitch, you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, with 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops, making a single crochet. Again, I'm just going to move my stitch marker to that very first stitch. This helps ensure that you are not adding or skipping any stitches so that your project can keep its shape. Okay, continue making single crochets in the back loop only. Remember to pick up the loop furthest away from you. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. Continue doing this all the way until the end of your row. Okay, I have reached the end. Now chain 1, turn your work, and we're going to again make single crochets in the back loop only all the way down, just like we did before. Okay, remember to only pick up the loops furthest away from you, only picking up the back loops. So you're going to continue doing this, make rows and rows of single crochet in the back loop only until you reach the measurement of your front panel width. Okay, so you're going to do enough rows of single crochet in the back loop only all the way until this ribbing part reaches the measurement that we calculated for the width of your front panel. So for me, the width of my front panel is 7 inches, so that means I made this ribbing about 7 inches long. And for 7 inches, I made 30 rows. To move on, we will start by making a row of single crochet working into the edge of our ribbing. So to continue, I'm just going to chain 1, and then I'm going to place 1 single crochet in each row of our ribbing. So let me just demonstrate. This is our first single crochet ribbing row, and then this is our second, and this is our third, this is our fourth, and our fifth. Now, as we're working into the edge of our work, there are no clear stitches to go into, so just insert your hook into each row. So for me, I'm going to insert my hook into this space here. That's making 1 single crochet. So that's my first row, and then in my second row, I'll insert my hook into here, making another single crochet. And then for my third row, I'll make another single crochet. Okay, so just make 1 single crochet in each single crochet back loop only row. My next row is here, so I'm going to insert my hook into that area and make a single crochet. Then my next row is here, insert my hook into that area, into that row, making a single crochet. So continue doing this all the way until you reach the end. Made it to the end. So since I made a total of 30 rows of my ribbing, that means I will have 30 single crochets worked along the edge here, because we made 1 single crochet per row. So you should have the same number of stitches that you made rows. Now that we've completed our ribbing, I'm going to switch over to my 5.5mm hook. And now we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and place 1 half double crochet in every stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Now with the remaining 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through those remaining 2 loops, and that is your first double crochet. Again, I suggest marking the first stitch of every row just to make sure you're not adding or skipping stitches. Okay, so continue making 1 double crochet in every stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. With the remaining 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, I'll show you one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, and with the remaining 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both of those loops. Okay, so that's a double crochet. Continue making double crochets all the way until you reach the end. Okay, I'm coming up to the end. I have 2 stitches left to go into, so I'll just make my double crochets. Okay, that's my last stitch. Now for the next row, chain 2, and we are going to make 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way across, just like we did for the previous row. Now don't worry if your work is starting to curve a little bit like this, or this part is getting bigger or will kind of go outwards like this. That is what we want, because that is what happens when we switch over to a bigger hook. So with a bigger hook, our stitches become bigger. So the stitches here are bigger than the stitches we did for our ribbing. Okay, coming up to the end of my row. That's what it looks like so far. We are now going to do another row of double crochets. So in total, we will do 3 rows of double crochets for this chunk. So if I just show you my first front panel that I made, we're going to do 3 rows of double crochet, and then I'm going to show you how to change color with 2 rows of single crochet, and we'll revert back to 3 double crochets and then 2 rows of single crochet and then 3 double crochet rows again. So for now, continue making 1 more row of double crochets in every stitch, just like we've been doing for the previous 2 rows. And then I'll show you how to change color. Okay, I've made it to the end of my row. Now I have 1 stitch left, and when you change color, we're going to change color at the last stitch of the previous row. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into my last stitch of the row, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. And instead of finishing my double crochet with my white yarn, I'm going to take my new color, my brown color. I'm going to hook it onto my hook like so, and I'm going to pull it through these 2 loops. Okay, so that's what you should have. At this point, I like to cut off my white color. And now I'm going to tie both of these ends together. So I'm going to tie my brown end and my white end to secure it in place. So I'm just going to make a double knot. So I've made my knot, I've secured my color change, and now we can continue crocheting. So for the brown stripe, I'm going to make a row of single crochets. So I'm going to start off by chaining 1, then turn my work, and I'm going to make 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. So remember to make a single crochet, insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So that's your first single crochet. Continue doing this all the way until the end. I'll show you one more time. Insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both of those loops. I've completed my 1 row of single crochets. Now at the end, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across, just like we did in the previous row. Since our stripe will only be 2 rows of single crochet, I'm going to switch back over to my white yarn. So we are at the last stitch of my single crochet row here, and to change color, I'm going to insert my hook into that last stitch. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop. Then with 2 loops on my hook, I'm just going to take my white yarn and I'm going to hook it onto my hook and complete my single crochet stitch with the white yarn. Okay, before I continue, I'm just going to snip my brown yarn, and then I'm going to tie the ends together. So these 2 ends were from the previous color change, and then these are the 2 new ends I need to tie together. So just like the first color change, I'm going to make a double knot. Okay, once you've completed your color change, we can go back to making our 3 rows of double crochet. So to start, chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to make 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way across. Now we're going to have a lot of ends by the end of this, so I like to weave them in as I go, and how I do that is I kind of sandwich them in between my stitches. So while making my double crochet, I will put them forward and sort of sandwich them in between my stitches, like so. Then just make my normal double crochets like normal, and they'll just be weaved in as I go. I'm just making normal double crochet stitches here, but making sure to include my ends in as I go. Okay, so they are getting weaved in as I'm making my stitches. So now we're just going to make 3 rows of double crochet, just like we did here. And then after that, you'll change color and do 2 rows of single crochet. Then you'll change back to your main color and do another 3 rows of double crochet. I'll show you what it looks like. This is the first front panel that I did. So we're just going to alternate between making 3 rows of double crochet and 2 rows of single crochet. Just keep repeating that. Keep making those repeat rows until it reaches your desired length. So the way to measure it is to take the project onto the top here, onto your shoulder, and you can see how long the project is going to be. If you want it to be longer, you can add more rows. If you want it to be more cropped, you can add less rows. It's completely up to you what length you want your cardigan to be. So for me, I did a total of 34 rows, and that's counting the very first row of single crochet that we worked into the edge of our ribbing. And in inches, it measures about 14 inches long. That's excluding the ribbing, and then with the ribbing, it measures about a little bit more than 15.5 inches. Okay, now that we've finished our front panel, we're going to add a few inches to create space for our shoulder. Now, if you're making a bigger size, you can add more rows if you want, but for me, I'm going to add about 3 inches of extra rows for my shoulder, and we're going to be dividing those 3 inches between the front and back panel. So I'm going to divide 3 by 2 to give me 1.5 inches. So that means for one front panel, I'm going to make an extra few rows that measures 1.5 inches. Now to do that, I'm going to continue in these double crochet rows. So I'm just going to take my tape measure and measure how many rows it will take for me to reach 1.5 inches. And for me, you can see it measures about here. So that's 3 rows of double crochets. So since I'm planning to add 1.5 inches more for my shoulder, and I know that 1.5 inches is 3 rows for me, then that means I need to add an extra 3 rows to reach that 1.5 inches measurement. So now that we've calculated how many rows we need to make for our shoulder space, I'm going to continue by making 3 extra rows of double crochet. So just like we've been doing, chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 double crochet in each stitch across. And continue doing this until I have my 3 extra rows. Okay, I've completed my extra 3 rows. So now in total, I have made 37 rows. And measuring from the top here to my very first single crochet row, it measures a little bit more than 16 inches. And then in total, this entire front panel, including my shoulder rows, measures almost 17.5 inches. So to finish off our front panel, I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn. Then you're going to pull to tighten, and you have finished your front panel. So you're going to make another front panel exactly like this one. You're going to do the same number of rows, same number of stitches, so that you have 2 front panels. Now we're going to work on our back panel. So to calculate the width of your back panel, you're going to take your bust measurement. So mine was 34 inches, and I'm going to divide that by 2. So 34 divided by 2 gives me 17 inches. So that means the width of my back panel will be 17 inches wide. So what that means is we're going to start by making our ribbing, and we're going to make enough rows of ribbing for it to reach the width of our back panel. So since we are making ribbing, I'm switching back to my 4.5mm hook. I'm going to start with a slip knot. And now I'm going to chain the same amount I did when I made the ribbing for my front panel here. So I did a chain of 7 plus 1. So in total I did 8 chains. Now I'm going to make my ribbing, so single crochet in the back loop only. So skipping that first chain, insert your hook into the next chain and make a single crochet. Continue making single crochets all the way down. Then once you reach the end of your chain, we're going to chain 1, turn your work, and make single crochet in the back loop only all the way down. So exactly the same way we made our front panel ribbing. Okay, so I finished making the ribbing for my back panel and it reaches 17 inches. I did a total of 68 single crochet in the back loop only rows. So now to move on, we're going to chain 1 and place 1 single crochet in the edge of our ribbing, making sure to put 1 single crochet per row, just like we did for the front panels. So since I made 68 ribbing rows, I will need to have 68 single crochet stitches along my edge. Made my last single crochet, and now I am going to switch out my hook and start using my 5.5mm hook again because we are done with the ribbing. And now I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and make double crochets in each stitch. So we're going to be following the same exact pattern of stitches that we did for the front panel. Okay, so you're going to do the same number of rows you did for your front panel, excluding this shoulder part. So if you remember, I did an extra 3 rows of double crochet for my shoulder. So we're not going to count those rows when we make our back panel. Instead, I'm going to stop at the row right before I made those extra 3 rows for the shoulder. Okay, I have finished making my 34 rows, and now we are going to add our shoulder part. So before we do that, we're going to take our front panel. So I'm just going to take one of my front panels here, and I'm going to count the number of stitches I have in my last row. I have 30 stitches for the last row of my front panel. So now I'm going to mark 30 stitches on my last row of my back panel here. So I'm going to count 30 stitches from each edge and mark the 30 stitches. Okay, so I have marked my 30 stitches from this end and 30 stitches from this end. This is what I have. So now we are going to make the same number of rows that we made for the shoulder part for our front panel. So if you remember correctly, I did 3 extra rows. So I'm going to do 3 more extra rows for my back panel as well. Now I'm going to make double crochets all the way until I reach my stitch marker. So we're going to chain 2, turn our work, yarn over and make double crochet in every stitch all the way across until I reach my stitch marker. I'm coming up to my stitch marker, making my last stitch of this row. Now I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and make 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way across until I reach the end. So this will be my second row of my shoulder rows. In total, I have to make 3 rows. Okay, and when you reach the end, chain 2, turn your work, and continue making your double crochets. So again, I have to make 3 extra rows. So I'll meet you back when I finish adding those extra rows. Okay, I've finished making my extra 3 rows. Once you're done, you're going to chain 1 and cut off your yarn. Pull to tighten, and you are finished with one side of your back panel. Now we're going to do the same exact thing to the other side of our back panel. So this time we don't have our yarn joined, so we're going to join our yarn. I'm going to join it at the edge here. So to join your yarn, you're going to insert your hook into that first stitch. Grab your yarn, pull it through, make a knot to secure the yarn. Insert your hook back into that same stitch, and then you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, chain 2, and we can continue crocheting like normal. So I'm going to place 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way across until I reach my stitch marker, and then it's going to be the same exact thing we did for this side. So to start, yarn over and insert your hook into that same stitch first because our chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, and then continue making your double crochets all the way down. And just like we did for the other side, when we reach our stitch marker, I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and continue making double crochets. So we're going to continue doing this until we have the same number of rows. that we did for the first side here. Okay, I have made my extra 3 rows, and when we're done, we are not going to chain 1 and cut off our yarn because now we are going to attach the back panel to our front panel. So take your front panel, so this is just one of my front panels, and I'm going to line it up to my back panel here. Okay, so to start connecting them, I'm going to chain 1. And I'm just going to hold them together and turn my work. Okay, so I have my back panel here and my front panel here. So now we're going to do a slip stitch join. So to do that, I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch of my back panel. Then insert my hook into the first stitch of my front panel, like so. Yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's our first slip stitch join. So we're going to do that all the way down until we reach the end. So go into your next stitch of the back panel and go into the next stitch of your front panel, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Show you one more time. Insert your hook into the next stitch of the back panel and then into the next stitch of your front panel, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, so continue doing this all the way down. I'm almost finished. I have one more stitch to go through. Okay, so once you're done, this is what it should look like. Now I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn. Pull to tighten, and you have connected your first side of front and back panels. So this is the wrong side, and the right side looks like this. So you can't really see the seam. Now we're going to do the same exact thing, but on the other side. So make sure you're still working on your wrong side because we still have to attach this side. So take your other front panel and line it up like so. And this time we don't have an already attached yarn, so we're just going to attach our yarn again. So once you have lined up your panels, I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch of my front panel. Then I'm going to grab my yarn and pull it through. Tie a knot to secure. Insert your hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Okay, so chain 1, and then I'm going to insert my hook back into that same stitch, and then insert my hook into the first stitch of my back panel. Then yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. Okay. Continue doing this all the way down, just like we did for the other side. Insert your hook into the next stitch of the front panel, and then insert your hook into the next stitch of the back panel. Yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. I have reached the end. Now I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn. Pull to tighten, and you have finished joining both of your front panels to your back panel. Okay, now we're going to try it on. So when you try it on, make sure that the seam is at the top of your shoulder and that the front and back panels are on the same level, because now we need to mark how big we want our armholes to be. So you're just going to pinch together the front and back panels to however wide or big you want your armhole to be. So for me, I want it about this big. Once you know how big you want your armhole to be, you're gonna take a stitch marker and you're gonna mark the front panel. So I've marked mine here. And then later we are going to join from the bottom up to create our armhole. Okay, so once it's marked, we are going to now mark the other side as well. Measuring from the top here, so this is where we joined the panels together all the way to the row that I marked is 7 inches. And in terms of rows, counting from this first row from the seam here, we have
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
15. So I marked my 15th row counting from the seam. Once you've marked both your sides, we can now start seaming from the bottom ribbing upwards to create our armhole. So taking my 5.5mm hook, I'm going to work on the edge here. So just turning my work so I can work more comfortably. I'm going to add my yarn, just inserting my hook into the first stitch of this ribbing here. And then doing the same thing on the other ribbing. So this side is a chain, so I'll insert my hook into that first chain. And then taking my yarn, I'm going to pull it through. And tie a knot. Okay, now you've joined your yarn. I'm going to insert my hook back into those same stitches that I inserted my yarn. And then I'm going to pull up a loop, so yarn over, pull up a loop, and then chain 1. Okay, so now we're going to connect these two panels together using a slip stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook into that same stitch again, yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook to create a slip stitch. Okay. So we're going to continue doing that all the way down. So I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch here, and then into the next stitch on the opposite side. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. Okay, so we've made 2 slip stitches so far. We're going to continue, insert your hook into the next stitch, and insert your hook into the next stitch of the opposite side. Yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, continue making this all the way until you reach your stitch markers. Now, once you finish joining your ribbing together, you'll notice that we're working on the edge of our panels here, so there's no clear stitches for us to go into. So now we're just going to work into each row. So for every double crochet row, we're going to work 2 stitches, and for every single crochet row, we'll work 1 stitch. So if you can see here, my next row is actually a single crochet row, because remember we did 1 row of single crochet before starting our double crochets. So I'm going to insert my hook into this row of single crochet on both panels and make a slip stitch. Now coming up to my next row, which is a double crochet row, I'm going to insert my hook into this double crochet row. And then on the opposite side as well, insert my hook into this double crochet row, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that was 1 stitch for that double crochet row, but like I said, we will be placing 2 stitches in every double crochet row. So I'm going to place another slip stitch in the same row. Doing the same thing on the opposite side, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So now that we've done our 2 stitches in 1 double crochet row, we'll move on to the next row, which is another double crochet row. So I'm going to place 2 slip stitches into this row. Okay, I've done my 2 slip stitches in that double crochet row. Next row is another double crochet row. So again, placing my 2 slip stitches into this row. Now I'm reaching my single crochet rows, so I'm going to place 1 slip stitch into each single crochet row, going into my first single crochet row here, inserting my hook into both sides, and then making a slip stitch. Okay, my next row is another single crochet row. So insert your hook into both sides and make a slip stitch. Okay, so this is what it should look like as you seam up the sides. So we're going to continue doing this all the way until we reach our stitch marker. So remember, place 2 slip stitches in every double crochet row. So these white rows will have 2 slip stitches, and in this brown row it's made of 2 single crochet rows. So you will place 1 slip stitch in each of these rows. Okay, once you reach your stitch markers, we are now going to start our sleeve. I'm going to remove these stitch markers because they're going to get in the way. So to start, I'm going to chain 2. And now I'm going to make double crochets all the way around our armhole to create our first armhole round. So again, we are still working in the edge of our panels, so there are no clear stitches, but same rule applies. We are going to place 1 double crochet in every row, but these double crochet rows will count as 2 rows. So we'll place 2 double crochets in every double crochet row. So to start, my first row is this double crochet row here. So yarn over, insert your hook into this double crochet row, and make a double crochet. So yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. With 2 remaining loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's my first double crochet of this double crochet row. I'm going to place 1 more in that same double crochet row. So that completes my double crochets for this double crochet row. My next row is another double crochet row, so I'll be placing 2 double crochets in that row. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next double crochet row, and make a double crochet. I have to make 1 more into this row. Okay, and now my next row is a single crochet. So I'm going to place 1 double crochet in that row. And then my next row is another single crochet row, so I'll place 1 double crochet in that row. And then my next row is a double crochet, so I'll place 2 double crochets in that row. And then again, my next row is a double crochet, so I'll place 2 double crochets in there. So I hope you understand this pattern. I also recommend you mark the very first stitch of our first round of the armhole, just because it might get confusing. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this all the way around until I reach my stitch marker. And when you reach the seam, you're just going to skip the seam and crochet like normal. So I finished making my second double crochet in that double crochet row. My next row is another double crochet, so I'll just continue making my double crochets like normal, just skipping that seam there. Okay, I've made it to my last stitch, and now I'm going to join my round. So I'm just going to remove the stitch marker, and we're going to slip stitch into that very first double crochet of the round. So mine is here. I insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through all the loops to slip stitch. Okay, so we now have joined our first armhole round. And now I'm going to just put a stitch marker in here because we need to turn this inside out, because right now we are working on the wrong side. So just flip this inside out. You might need to pull your yarn through as well. Okay, so this is what you should have now for your first armhole. Now for this armhole, I'm going to repeat the same exact pattern I did for our panels. So I'm going to repeat 3 double crochet rows, 2 single crochet rows, and 3 double crochet rows again. Okay, so to continue, insert hook back into that loop that we were working with. So I basically just did 1 row of double crochet, so I'm going to do 2 more rows, so I have that 3 rows of double crochet, and then I'll switch over to my brown single crochet rows. So to start your second round, chain 2, and I'm always going to turn my work. You always want to turn your work at the beginning of every armhole round so that the seam is straight. Once you've turned your work, I'm going to place 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way around. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. With 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Again, if you struggle identifying stitches, I recommend you mark the first stitch of every round. This makes it so much easier when we come back to join it at the end. So I'm just going to continue making my double crochets just like normal all the way around in every stitch. I'm coming up to the end of my second round. I'm going to place my last double crochet in here. And now I'm going to slip stitch join into that very first stitch of the round. So removing my stitch marker and inserting my hook into that very first stitch and slip stitching. Okay, so that is our second round. I'm going to do 1 more round of double crochets, so chain 2, and remember to always turn your work. And again, I'm going to place 1 double crochet in every stitch all the way around. Don't forget to mark your first stitch if you need to. Okay, I am at the end of my round, so I've just finished making my last double crochet, and now I'm going to show you how to change color in the round. So as you slip stitch into that first stitch of the round, you're going to insert your hook into that first stitch. And now instead of yarning over and pulling through the white color, we're going to take our second color. So I'm going to take my brown, hook it on, and pull it through all the loops. Okay. And before I move on, I'm just going to knot these 2 ends together. So I'm going to cut off my white yarn, and I'm going to make a knot with these 2 ends. Do a double knot to secure. Okay, and now we can continue crocheting. So for my single crochet rounds, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. Again, it's always easier to mark your very first stitch of every round. Okay, so continue making your single crochets until you reach the end. Okay, I've reached the end. I just have one more single crochet to do. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that first single crochet we made. So insert my hook and slip stitch like so. And now I'm going to make one more round of single crochets. So chain one, turn your work, and place one single crochet in each stitch all the way across. Okay, I've made it to the end of my single crochet round. Now I'm going to slip stitch, but since I finished doing my 2 rows of single crochet, I'm going to switch over to my white color again. So insert my hook into the first stitch of the round, and then grab my new color, hook it on, pull it through, and then I'm going to cut off my brown yarn. And then I'm going to tie the ends in a double knot. And now we can continue crocheting. So to start off your double crochet round, chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So you're just going to continue this pattern of making 3 rounds of double crochet and then change color to do 2 rows of single crochet rounds, and then switch over back to your white and make 3 rows of double crochet. Okay, so as you continue making your sleeve rows, I recommend you keep trying it on until it reaches at about this point, so before your wrist. So once it measures about 2.5 inches from your wrist, you're gonna stop and start making your decreased rows. Okay, so for me, counting from that very first row of our sleeve, it measures about 14 inches. And in total, I've done 31 rows. So I'm about to close off my 31st row now, and I'll show you how to decrease starting on the 32nd row. To close up our 31st row, slip stitch into that first stitch of the round. And now we're going to chain 2, turn our work. For this first decrease row, we're going to make a decrease stitch in every 6th stitch. So place 5 double crochets, and then in the 6th stitch we'll do a decrease. I'll show you how to do it. So placing my first double crochet, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now coming up to my 6th stitch, I'm going to do a decrease. So to do a decrease, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and with 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. And now we're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 4 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then with 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all those 3 loops. So that's our decreased stitch, which is also a double crochet 2 together. So we're going to continue making our decreased stitch in every 6th stitch. So I'm going to continue by making 5 double crochets into the next stitches. And then when I come up to my 6th stitch, I'm placing a decrease. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Now yarn over and insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Now with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Okay, so continue doing this until you reach the end. Okay, I've made it to the end of my round. I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch of the round, then chain 2, turn my work, and now we're going to make a decrease stitch in every 5th stitch. So I'm going to place 4 double crochets and then 1 decrease stitch. So this is my first double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've reached my 5th stitch. I'm going to make a decrease. So the same decrease that we did for the previous round, the exact same way. And then continue making my 4 double crochets, and then in the 5th stitch I'll make another decrease. So we'll continue this pattern all the way around. Yeah, I've made the last stitch of round 33. Since I've done my 3 rows of white double crochet, I'm going to switch over to my brown yarn. So I'm going to slip stitch, but instead of finishing my slip stitch with my white yarn, I'm going to grab my new color, hook it on, and finish off the slip stitch. Before continuing, I'm going to cut off my white yarn, then tie these 2 tails together to secure. Now I'm ready to start crocheting again. So for this next round, we are going to decrease in every 4th stitch. So to start, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and I'm going to place 3 single crochets, and in every 4th stitch I'm going to place a decrease. So I'll show you how to do that. So this will be my first single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm at my 4th stitch. I'm going to do a decrease. So to decrease in your single crochet rounds, you are going to insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and with 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on our hook. So that is also known as a single crochet 2 together. So that's our decrease stitch. So I'm going to show you one more time. We're going to place 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Now coming up to our 4th stitch, I'm going to place a decrease. So insert our hook into that 4th stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all those loops. Okay, so continue doing this pattern all the way until the end. And now once you are at the end of your round, we're going to slip stitch into that very first stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and for this round, we are not going to make any decreases. We're just going to place 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around. Now I'm at the end. I'm also going to change over to my white color, so we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the round, then cut off my brown yarn and join back my white yarn, then making a knot to secure the color change. Then we can continue with our decreases. So chain 2, turn your work, and for this row we are going to make decreases in every 3rd stitch. Now please note that for different sizes you will have different number of rows and different decrease rows and things like that, so I really do recommend you keep trying this on until it reaches the length that you desire. Now keep in mind that we will be adding a ribbing to this, a little cuff. So for me, I want my ribbing to have a length of about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to keep making my decreased rows until it reaches about the length where I have 1.5 inches left. So let's say I want my sleeve in total to come to about here at the end of my wrist. So I want to make sure that I'm going to stop at a point where I have space for the ribbing as well. So right now, if I wear this properly, this is the current length of my sleeve so far. And I'm going to do one more round of the white double crochet rows, and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to move on to the ribbing cuff. Basically what I'm trying to say is just make sure you leave room, leave some space for the ribbing as well. Okay, so just keep trying it on. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to make a decrease in every third stitch. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and now I'm at my third stitch. I'm going to place a double crochet 2 together. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, and now with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, so again, I will keep doing this all the way around, making a decrease in every third stitch. Okay, I have reached the end. I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. Okay, and now I am going to start my ribbing. So I'm going to switch over to my 4.5mm hook because we are doing the ribbing. And now for the ribbing, I want it to be the same length as my back and front panel ribbings. So I did 8 chains in total, so I'm going to do the same number of chains I did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now I'm just going to slightly turn my work so I can work into the chain. Okay, so we're going to make single crochets in the back loop only. We're going to skip that first chain, insert our hook into the second chain, and make a single crochet. I'm going to continue doing that all the way down. So I should have 7 single crochets. Once you've made your single crochets down the chain, we are going to insert our hook into this next stitch and make a slip stitch. Okay, so we're kind of anchoring down this chain here. Now we're going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch again to start our new ribbing row. Once you've made 2 slip stitches, we're going to slightly turn our work. And now we are going to work along this chain here. So skip those first 2 stitches because those were slip stitches. And into that third stitch, I'm placing a single crochet, only going into the back loop. Again, I should have 7 single crochets. Once you've made your way to the end, we're going to chain 1, turn your work, and we're going to make single crochets in the back loop only all the way down. So again, skipping that chain and inserting your hook only into the back loop of your stitches, making single crochets. Once you've made your way down, we are now going to slip stitch again. But since we want this area here, this cuff, to be a little bit tighter around our wrist, I'm going to make a little decrease. So to do that, I'm going to decrease with slip stitches. So insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you're going to pull through all the loops on your hook. So that will count as one slip stitch. We're going to do another one, but this time just a normal slip stitch. So insert your hook into the next stitch and just place a regular slip stitch. Now we're going to slightly turn our work and work our way up to the ribbing. So skipping these first 2 stitches, we're going to insert our hook into the back loop only of the 3rd stitch, making our single crochet. Remember to only pick up the back loops. So work your way up. Once you reach the top, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and work our way down again. Once you reach the bottom, we are now going to slip stitch. So insert your hook into the next stitch and make a slip stitch. Going to do that again, insert your hook into the next stitch and slip stitch. Now for the decreased slip stitches, it really depends on how tight you want your cuff to be. If you want your cuff to be tighter, you're going to make more slip stitch decreases. If you want it to be less tight, you can just make regular slip stitches when you come back down to the base of the sleeve. So I'm just going to show you one more time. We're going to turn our work, skip those first 2 stitches, and insert your hook into the back loop of that 3rd stitch, making your single crochet. Keep making your single crochets in the back loop only all the way up. And once you reach the top, chain 1, turn your work, and then we're going to make our way back down. Once you are down at the bottom, at the base of your sleeve, we are going to make slip stitches. Now, if you want your sleeve, this cuff here, to be tighter, we're going to do a slip stitch decrease. But if not, you can just normally slip stitch twice into your next 2 stitches. But if you want to make your cuff tighter, I'll show you how. So this is a slip stitch decrease. We're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's a decrease slip stitch. And that will only count as one slip stitch. Now remember, when you come back to the base, you're going to slip stitch twice. So for the next one, I'm just going to do a normal slip stitch. So insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through all the loops. And then we're going to continue working on our ribbing again. So skipping those first 2 stitches and inserting your hook into the back loop of the 3rd stitch and making your single crochets. You still have to keep trying it on, making sure that the cuff area is not too tight on your wrist. Again, if it's too tight, then that means you have to do less slip stitch decreases. And if it's too loose, that means you need to do more slip stitch decreases. Okay, so I hope you get the gist of this. We are going to continue doing this all the way around until we reach the beginning here. Okay, so I'm going to show you. I'm just going to try this on. I have reached the end here. So you want to make sure you keep trying it on, and let's see if I stop at this row. This is how tight it will be, and this is a comfortable fit for me. So I'm going to stop here, and now we are going to sew up these 2 together to complete our sleeve. So I have reached the bottom here. I'm just going to slip stitch one last time into the next stitch. And now I'm going to sew up these 2 sides. So since we are working on the right side, I'm going to make sure that the seam is on the wrong side. So I'm going to kind of fold this inwards like so. So we can sew up the sleeve this way. So to start, I'm going to chain 1, insert my hook into the first stitch of this side, and then into the first stitch of the other side as well, and make a slip stitch. Then continue doing this into the next stitch of this side and into the next stitch of the opposite side, and a slip stitch. Okay, so continue stitching up these two sides together. Okay, I am at the end now, making my last slip stitch. Okay, so this is what it should look like on the wrong side, and then once you flip it over, this is what the good side should look like. So now to finish off our work, I'm going to chain 1, and just to really make sure that this fits, I'm going to try this on again, making sure that it's not too tight, not too loose on my wrist. Okay, once you like the fit, we are going to finish off. So we've chained 1, now I'm going to cut off my yarn and pull to tighten. So there you have it. You have one sleeve finished. So just to give you some measurements, my sleeve, excluding the ribbing, is around 16 inches long. But including the ribbing, it's about 17.5 inches long. Okay, so once you've finished your first sleeve, we're now going to do the exact same thing that we did on this side to this side. So let me just give a brief summary. So your next steps are to join your yarn to this end here. You're going to seam up the side up until the stitch marker. And then you're going to create rows around this armhole to create your sleeve. You're going to make the same number of rows, same number of decreases, everything the same. Okay, so once you've finished both of your sleeves, the last thing we're going to do is just a few finishing touches. So I'm going to make a slip stitch border all the way around the neckline here, and I am going to start my work. Okay, make sure it is on the right side, so your seam should be on the inside, and I'm just going to start from here. So I'm going to join my yarn to this ribbing part here. I'm also using a 5.5mm hook to do this. Okay, so we're going to join our yarn. I'm going to insert my hook into that very first chain, take my yarn, pull it through, make a knot to secure, insert my hook back into that chain, and now we can start. So I'm going to pull up a loop and chain 1 to start. And now I'm just going to make a slip stitch in each chain here. And then once we are done with this ribbing part, we will continue to put a slip stitch into every row. Again, the same rule applies. We will be placing 2 slip stitches into each double crochet row. Okay, so to show you how to get started, we are going to insert our hook back into that same stitch and make a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. That's our first slip stitch. We're going to continue doing this, so insert your hook into the next chain, make a slip stitch. Okay, so we're just going to continue making slip stitches as our little border here to kind of clean up the edges, and it's just some finishing touches. Okay, once you are done with that ribbing part, I'm just going to go ahead and place 1 slip stitch per row. So my next row here is a single crochet row. So I'm just going to insert my hook into that row and place 1 slip stitch. And we're going to do the same exact thing, but for these double crochet rows, we'll be placing 2 slip stitches per row. So this will be my first slip stitch of this double crochet row, and then my second slip stitch of this double crochet row. Okay, so again, my next row is a double crochet, so I'll be placing 2 slip stitches per row. Now you don't want to make your slip stitches too tight, otherwise your work will start to curl, so keep your tension loose on this part. Okay, and once you come up to your single crochet rows, we're going to place 1 slip stitch per single crochet row. And then going back to my double crochet rows, placing 2 slip stitches per double crochet row. Okay, so it should look something like this so far. We're going to keep going all the way. Once you reach the seam here, you are just going to skip it. We aren't going to treat it as another row, so my next row after the seam is a double crochet row. So I'm just going to go ahead and place my slip stitches into this row instead. So we're just going to skip that seam part and continue placing our slip stitches. Okay, now once you reach this part where there are clear stitches for you to place, you can just go ahead and place your slip stitches into these stitches, nice and easy all the way down. And then you will be reaching the other side, so you'll start to put in your stitches in the edge of your work again. So just like we've been doing, place 2 slip stitches in each double crochet row, and 1 slip stitch in each single crochet row, and we will also be skipping this seam here, so we won't treat it as an extra row. And I'll meet you back once we're at the end. Okay, once you've reached the end, we're just going to chain 1 and cut off our yarn. Pull to tighten, and you are finished with your cardigan. So now the only thing left to do is to weave in all of these little ends. You made it to the end of the tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you want to see more content from me, make sure to like and subscribe. I hope to see you next time. Bye!